You found a good fare. The price looked right. You clicked through the booking screen, saw the total, and felt like you'd made a smart decision. What you didn't see was the cost of the bag you were already planning to bring. And as of mid-2026, the airline is no longer required to show you. That's not an oversight. It's a system. And in recent months, that system shifted in ways that are catching even experienced travelers off guard. At the booking screen, at the counter, at the gate, and at baggage claim. Checked bag fees are the highest they've ever been. The rule that would have forced airlines to show those fees up front was formally rolled back, and the policies around what goes in the bag, what happens when it doesn't arrive, and what the airline actually owes you, almost none of it gets explained at check-in. 12 things about checked bags catching travelers off guard right now, and the first one is so recent, most passengers still haven't heard about it. Number 12. The rule that let airlines hide the bag fee. For years, a federal rule was working its way through the regulatory process that would have changed how airline pricing works. It would have required airlines and booking sites to show the cost of a checked bag the first time a fare appeared in search results, right there, alongside the ticket price, before any clicking or commitment. Airlines challenged that rule in court. They won. A federal appeals court vacated the regulation in early 2026, and on July 2, 2026, the Department of Transportation issued a final rule formally restoring the older disclosure standards. Airlines still publish bag fees on their own websites, but they are no longer required to surface those fees when fares first appear during a search. For a traveler comparing fares across multiple airlines, this creates a specific problem. A ticket that looks $30 or $40 cheaper than a competitor may cost more once the bag is added. Catching that gap now requires opening a separate page, finding the fee schedule, and doing the math manually before the booking is finalized. The fix. Before comparing any fares, open each airline's baggage fee page separately and add that cost to the base ticket price. The fare shown during a search is where the comparison starts, not where it ends. And there's a reason that hidden fee matters more right now than it ever has. The fee itself just hit its highest level. Number 11. Every major airline raised fees. This spring, in a short window in spring 2026, every major U.S. airline raised checked bag fees. United moved first, Delta followed days later, and Southwest, the last holdout after ending its free bag policy less than a year earlier, joined within the same period. Carriers cited rising operating costs, including jet fuel. The standard increase was about $10 per bag. First bags now cost around $45 on most major carriers, often a few dollars less if prepaid online. Second bags sit around $55. Third bags rose by a steeper amount, now running $150 or more on most carriers, significantly higher on some. For a traveler on a fixed income or carefully budgeting a long-anticipated trip, these numbers accumulate quickly. One checked bag on a round trip is roughly $90 in fees before the hotel, before transportation, before anything else. Two bags on a round trip, around $200. Neither number existed until recently. For over 50 years, Southwest Airlines offered free checked bags on every fare. That policy ended in May 2025. Then, within 11 months, Southwest raised those new fees by another $10. A traveler who hasn't flown Southwest in the past year may still expect free bags. They no longer exist on any major U.S. carrier. The fix. Whatever you paid to check a bag last year is no longer the number. Check the current fee on your airline's website before packing and factor it into the total cost of the trip before booking. That covers what the fees cost. The next one is about when a fare quietly removes the bag from the deal entirely. Number 10. The basic economy bag trap. A traveler books the cheapest available fare. The confirmation email arrives. There's a seat number, a flight number, a departure time. Everything looks correct. What it doesn't clearly show is that this ticket doesn't include a checked bag, and on some budget fares, doesn't include a full-size carry-on either. Airlines now operate on fare-based baggage policies. What a ticket covers depends not just on the airline, but on the specific fare class within that booking. Basic economy and similar entry-level fares on most major airlines frequently exclude a free checked bag. Some budget fares exclude a carry-on as well. For a traveler who's flown the same airline for years and always checked a bag without an issue, this shift is invisible until check-in. The brand feels familiar. The airport feels familiar. But the fare class attached to this particular booking quietly changed what the ticket covers, and nothing flags it during the transaction. Layer this on top of point 12. With fee transparency rolled back, bag allowances don't appear automatically during a search. A traveler compares prices, clicks, books, and moves forward, and the bag restriction only surfaces clearly at the counter when the cheapest options are already gone. The fix. Before clicking purchase on any fare, scroll to the bag allowance line, not just the final price. If it says basic economy, personal item only, or light fare, calculate the full cost with the bag added before committing. The cheap ticket is not always the cheap trip. That's 3 consecutive booking stage surprises. The next one happens at the counter itself. Number 9. The online versus airport counter price gap. The bag goes onto the scale at check-in. The agent quotes the fee. The traveler pays and moves forward, not knowing that the same bag would have cost less if it had been added online before arriving. Most major airlines now charge more for a checked bag paid at the airport counter than for the same bag added through the airline's website or app at least 24 hours before departure. The gap exists across most major carriers, and on budget airlines the difference can be significantly larger depending on the route and timing. The advertised rate most travelers see and budget with is almost always the prepaid online rate. The counter rate is different. A traveler who doesn't find the fee during booking, doesn't add the bag in advance, and pays at the counter ends up paying more than the published price, at the worst possible moment. For a traveler who prefers handling things in person at the airport, this structure consistently costs more. On most major carriers, prepaying online saves a few dollars per bag per direction. On budget carriers, the gap is far wider, making the counter the most expensive checkout option on the entire trip. The fix. Add the checked bag through the airline's website or app at least 24 hours before departure. It costs less. It takes a few minutes. And it removes the counter surcharge before the trip even begins. Now the focus shifts from what the ticket includes to what goes inside the bag, and 3 surprises that show up before the bag ever leaves a traveler's hands. Number 8. The overweight fee shock. The suitcase goes onto the scale at check-in. The number settles at 52 pounds. The agent says there's an overweight charge. The traveler asks how much. The answer is $100 for 2 pounds. The standard weight limit for a checked bag on most major U.S. carriers is 50 pounds. There is no warning, no graduated structure, no first pound grace. 1 pound over the limit triggers the full overweight charge automatically. On most domestic routes, that charge is $100 per bag. Bags over 70 pounds move into a higher fee tier again on most carriers. Some carriers won't accept bags over 100 pounds at all. What catches travelers off guard is how easy it is to be 1 or 2 pounds over without realizing it. A pair of shoes weighs more than expected. A souvenir added the night before tips the total. For a traveler packing medications, compression socks, extra layers for cold cabins, and clothing for an extended stay, the bag that felt reasonable at home may read 51 or 52 pounds by departure morning. The fee arrives at the counter with no warning, in public with a line behind. The fix. Weigh the bag at home, fully packed, with everything inside, before travel day. A luggage scale costs under $15 and removes the single biggest financial surprise waiting at the counter. The weight limit is the one most travelers have heard of. The next limit is the one almost nobody knows exists. Number 7. The 62 linear inches rule. Ask most travelers what the size limit is for a checked bag, and they won't know there is one. The standard for checked baggage on most major U.S. carriers is 62 linear inches, the sum of a bag's length plus width plus height combined. Bags that exceed 62 total inches are classified as oversized and charged a fee that typically runs $100 to $200 on top of the standard checked bag fee already paid. The calculation catches people because of how suitcases are sold and described. A bag marketed as a 29-inch suitcase refers only to its longest single dimension. When the full 3 measurements, including width, depth, wheels, and handles, are added together, the same bag can push past 62 linear inches without the traveler ever running the number. For a traveler with a large rolling suitcase that has served well on many trips, this is one of the quieter airport surprises. The bag passed before. Nobody questioned it before. But if that suitcase was never measured across all 3 dimensions, and most are not, the counter today may be the first time the actual total comes to light. The fix. Before packing, add up all 3 dimensions of your suitcase, including wheels and handles when extended. If the total approaches 62 inches, measure again with the bag fully packed. Close at home under calm conditions is not the same as passing at a busy counter under pressure. Size and weight are both about the bag itself. The next rule is about what's packed inside it, and it catches travelers at the counter more often than almost anything else on this list. Number 6. The battery and smart luggage trap at check-in. A traveler at the check-in counter passes over a roller bag with a built-in USB charging port and a digital lock powered by a small internal battery. The agent asks whether the battery is removable. The traveler isn't sure. The bag gets refused. The FAA prohibits spare lithium batteries, power banks, and e-cigarettes from checked baggage. These items must travel in the cabin, not the cargo hold. The reason is direct. A battery fire in the cargo hold cannot be reached or controlled by the crew during flight. A fire in the cabin can be managed. Smart Luggage created a specific version of this problem. Bags with built-in charging ports, digital locks, GPS trackers, or motorized features run on lithium batteries. If those batteries cannot be removed without tools, the bag is refused, in both the cabin and the cargo hold. A traveler who arrives with an expensive smart suitcase carrying a non-removable battery may be told to leave it behind entirely. For many travelers, this rule extends to hearing aid charging cases, CPAP battery packs, and medical device chargers that use lithium power banks. These belong in the bag that stays in the cabin, not in a roller bag that might be gate-checked on a full flight. And if a carry-on containing a power bank is taken plane-side at the gate, those batteries must be removed before the bag goes below the aircraft. Most travelers don't know this step exists until an agent is waiting for them to do it. The fix. Keep all power banks, spare batteries, and lithium-powered chargers in the bag that stays in the cabin with you. If you own smart luggage, verify the battery is removable before check-in day, not at the counter. Those first 7 points all happen at or before check-in. What follows is what happens to the bag after it leaves a traveler's hands, including 2 rights most travelers never know they have until they need them. If this is useful so far, subscribe right now. 2 seconds. The last 5 are the ones most people never hear about until something goes wrong. Number 5. The valuables exclusion. The airline never mentions at check-in. A traveler's bag arrives 3 days late. When it finally appears, items inside are damaged. A camera, a pair of reading glasses, a small piece of jewelry. They file a claim expecting compensation. The airline responds that those items fall outside their liability. Airlines carry legal liability limits for lost or damaged bags, but those limits come with exclusion lists never announced at the counter when the fee is collected. Jewelry, cameras, electronics, medication, glasses, cash, passports, and important documents are all commonly listed as excluded items, meaning the airline may accept zero financial responsibility for them regardless of what happened. It's in every airline's contract of carriage. It simply isn't mentioned during the transaction. For many travelers, this matters in a very practical way. The bag that gets checked often contains exactly the items on that list. Prescription medication, glasses that are the only pair, a hearing aid charger, insurance papers and documents needed at the destination. The fee is collected. The protection for what matters most is not. The fix, medication, glasses, important documents, valuables, and anything irreplaceable should travel in the cabin, not in the cargo hold. The checked bag fee does not purchase protection for what matters most. The bag is packed. The fee is paid. What happens next is decided at the ramp. Number 4. Why checked bags get left behind on full flights. A traveler's bag checks in without any issue. The boarding pass scans. The flight departs on time. At the baggage carousel at the destination, nothing arrives. The airline confirms the bag is still at the departure airport. Every commercial aircraft operates under strict weight and balance limits. The cargo hold has a maximum load calculated alongside fuel, passengers, and all cargo on board. On a full summer flight, particularly one using a smaller regional aircraft, the combined weight of checked bags can exceed what the aircraft is able to carry on that departure. When it does, bags are removed from the ramp and held for a later flight. This typically happens without any announcement at the gate. The passenger boards normally. The bag stays behind. App notifications have improved, but aren't consistent enough to depend on. The traveler usually finds out at the carousel, after a long flight, in an unfamiliar airport, with nowhere to be and a bag that isn't coming. For a traveler counting on that bag for medication, a change of clothes, or items needed that same evening, keep those in the cabin. Full flights and peak travel days are when this happens most. And if the bag does get left behind, a small tracker like an air tag placed inside before departure lets you see exactly where it is. Data airlines are increasingly accepting in mishandled bag claims. The fix. Place a tracker inside the checked bag before every flight. It costs about the price of one overweight fee paid once and gives you real-time location data the airline may not provide on its own. That's a bag left behind because the aircraft ran out of capacity. The next situation is also a bag left behind, but for a different reason entirely. Two airlines each assuming it was the other one's job to move it. Number 3. The multi-airline connection risk. A traveler books 2 separate tickets to bring the cost down. One carrier for the outbound, a different one for the connection. At the connection, the first flight arrives 20 minutes late. There's no time for the bag to transfer. It stays at the connection airport. When the traveler contacts both airlines, each explains it is only responsible for its own legs. When a trip uses 2 different airlines on separate tickets, the checked bag does not automatically transfer between them. Each carrier accepts responsibility for its own flights only. If the window is tight, the carriers don't share a baggage handling system, or the first leg arrives late, the bag can be stranded at the midpoint, with no single airline holding clear accountability. For a traveler who booked separately to find a lower price, this is where those savings can disappear. A bag held at a connection airport while the traveler continues to the final destination creates the same practical problem as a lost bag, without the same clear resolution path. The fix. When booking a connecting trip, use a single itinerary on one carrier or within one alliance whenever possible. On a single ticket, the carrier holds responsibility for the bag across all legs. On separate tickets, that responsibility stops at each airline's own gate. We're down to the final 2. And these are the ones that can put money back in a traveler's hands. Number 2. The compensation cap. Most travelers accept too little for. A traveler's bag is lost. The airline offers $150 to settle. The traveler accepts because they don't know the legal limit is more than 30 times that amount. For domestic U.S. flights, the Department of Transportation sets the maximum airline liability for lost, damaged, or delayed checked baggage at $4,700 per passenger under current federal regulation. For most international flights, the Montreal Convention sets a separate cap at approximately $2,175 per passenger, a figure denominated in special drawing rights and subject to periodic review. These are legal maximums. An airline cannot set its own liability below these figures under federal regulation, though it can, and often does, offer significantly less as a first response. Most travelers who have never seen these numbers accept whatever the airline offers first. They don't photograph the bag's contents before traveling. They don't keep receipts for essentials purchased while the bag is missing. They don't submit anything in writing. A verbal offer gets accepted and the matter is considered closed. For a traveler whose bag contained a week of prescription medication, a mobility aid, dress clothing for a family event, or items with real replacement cost. The gap between what's offered and what the law allows can be substantial. The fix. If a bag is lost or damaged, photograph the contents before the trip. Save every receipt for expenses caused by the delay and submit a written claim. The first verbal offer from the airline is a starting point, not the final word. And now, the last one. It applies to millions of delayed bags every year. Almost nobody uses it. Number 1. The 12-hour refund rule nobody knows to claim. A traveler lands at the destination. The bag doesn't appear at baggage claim. The airline says it's delayed and will arrive tomorrow. The traveler goes to the hotel. The bag shows up the following afternoon. Nobody mentions a refund. The traveler paid $45 to check that bag. When it didn't travel with them, they received nothing back. That should not be what happens. In 2024, the Department of Transportation finalized a rule requiring airlines to refund checked bag fees when bags are significantly delayed. For domestic flights, if a checked bag is not delivered within 12 hours of the flight arriving at the gate, the airline owes a full refund of the bag fee. For international flights under 12 hours, the window is 15 hours. For longer international routes, 30 hours. This is a federal requirement, not a goodwill gesture. But it carries one condition most travelers never learn. A mishandled baggage report must be filed with the airline before leaving the airport. That report starts the clock. Without it, there is no documented delay on record, no trigger for the refund, and no money returned regardless of how late the bag arrived. For a traveler navigating an unfamiliar airport after a long flight, stopping to file a report before leaving takes a deliberate decision. It may feel like the last thing that matters in that moment, but it is the only step that keeps the right alive. The fix. If a checked bag doesn't appear at baggage claim, file a mishandled baggage report with the airline before leaving the airport. Not at the hotel, not the next morning. At the airport, before leaving, because that single report is the only thing that triggers the refund. Now I'm curious, which one of these surprised you the most? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to know. And if you want your next trip to feel smoother, calmer, and more in control, make sure you subscribe. Because stress at the airport doesn't come from travel, it comes from not knowing what's really happening.